So change the whole way you think, right? So if you, instead of you being offended that someone is challenging what you're doing, or someone is like, well, what if we did it this way? Or like, I don't really think this is a good plan. Instead of you being defensive and taking it personal and being upset and then going into defensive mode, if you change the way you think and you're like, wow, I have created a culture and a psychologically safe environment that my team wants to improve, wants to be better.
I have cursed out so many people using pen and paper. I have, I've talked about somebody like, whoo, like you would not imagine, on pen and paper, just to get it out, just to have an avenue of expression for that anger, for that frustration, for that offense, so to speak. Because once I got it out, it's no longer.
You can be a leader, but a leader is a developed set of skills. It's a developed set. State of mind. State of mind. State of mind. State of mind.
Today, bro.
Hey, it's lovely, boy. It's a wonderful Sunday. The weather has fully turned over. It's no more raining. It's just sun. It is hot. If you are not familiar with Japanese summer, because I know there's a lot of talk about Japan right now, about how awesome it is to come. I'm telling you right now, if you are planning to come to Japan, just be careful, because it's hot. Like, you're not ready for the level of hot that I'm talking about. It is, if you've been to Guam and understand that humidity, yeah, it's that hot. So we stand inside for the most part, bro, and we go out when the sun starts going down.
What's the plans for the day? I'll let you know when the sun goes down.
Exactly.
If it involves AC, I'm in
there.
Other than that, I'm waiting.
In there. It's hot, boy. It ain't even, and it's not even at its peak yet. We're not even in August yet. So
it's gonna get worse.
It's gonna get worse.
I'll tell you, it took 1 year in Hawaii for me to forget what humidity feels like. I was on leave, went home to New York, and boy, I didn't even want to go outside. Like, I was like, whoo, take your breath away when you walk outside. So I feel that. I miss the island breeze and 75 and 80.
I'm telling you, man. You can't
if you can't find happiness in Hawaii, man, like, you need to go get some professional help, man.
Bro, when people tell me that, oh man, I couldn't stand Hawaii, I'm like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Did we go to the same places? Because I love that place.
For sure, man. Yeah. So, hey, man, listen, what you been up to?
So this week has been really, really getting caught back up because I hadn't been at work.
Okay.
Had to take some personal leave. You get some family stuff situated. So getting back, man, I tell you, getting back to work and having to deal with the inbox influx is just, I despise it, because I already hate sitting in my office to begin with, because I prefer just kind of being out and about. Number one, makes the day move along quicker, and it just brings me life just to be able to interact with people in that way. But sitting and just getting caught up and stuff, and so it's been that part, like, but getting back to work and getting back in the groove of things, and my chief mess holding me down while I've been gone. It's been good. It's been good. What about you?
First leadership state of mind hack of the day. I like to go into work the day before I'm supposed to go back to work. Yeah. So I'll wait for everyone to leave for the day, bring dinner into work like 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'll just go through my email and clear my inbox with no one at work, because I feel like what I can do in an hour or two will take me an entire day the day I get back.
That's fair.
And then that way, that way, that Monday morning, everyone's like, let me update you. I'm like, no, I got it. I'm tracking. Yeah. We're good to go. So, all right. Hey, man, just for me, honestly, work's been crazy in a good way. I love doing my job. I love what I do, but been traveling a lot, been out to sea a lot, doing a lot of inspections, certifications on some of the boats out here. So been super
Yeah.
busy. First weekend off in a couple weeks, so it feels great. It feels great. Got to golf this morning. About to have a nice, relaxing Sunday tomorrow. So I'm good, man. I can't complain at all. And as always, man, anytime we get to chop it up on a podcast, it's always a good day. So
Facts.
So as we're talking about all the things, man, it was all good just a week ago. What's going on?
It was all good. One of the aspects of being a leader is wanting to make sure that things happen at the proper speed, at the proper pace. Just a reminder to leaders out there, and it was a reminder to myself as well, as I had the chance to take this personal time of leave over the last couple of weeks. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't allow yourself to get burned out because we develop these performance goals in our minds that, we got to hit this, we got to be here, right? Leadership is an infinite game. Going back to Simon Sinek, but it is. So it's not about the sprint. It's not about let's get it done. Sometimes the situations or circumstance may facilitate a necessity to really push the envelope on some things, but not all the time, right? So just keep in mind that as you're planning your days, as you're planning your weeks, you're planning your months, everything don't have to get done today.
Mm-hmm.
Everything don't have to get done this week. Everything don't have to get done this month. Put things in a proper place and remind yourself consistently, okay, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, when we talk about it was all good just a week ago, these aren't things that we are telling you. These are things that we have to communicate to ourselves and be reminded of ourselves, right? So this ain't me preaching to you about it's a marathon, not a sprint. This was something that I've had to say to myself this week as I was getting back engaged in things and seeing things that may or may not got done like I wanted to. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
I like that. Yeah. And so if you're following us for the first time, this is your first time listening to the podcast, we're going to run through a couple segments. It was all good just a week ago. We're talking about just some leadership shortfalls and some things that we've seen or we've personally dealt with and how to overcome them, right? Because no one's perfect. We strive every day to be better versions of ourselves. My shortfall of the week, my conversation piece that I had over the last couple of days was, as a leader, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
In our role, we're dealing with 17, 18, 19-year-old young men and women. And I think it's our job to mentor them and help them to become the best versions of ourselves. Sometimes that requires intrusive leadership and conversations to protect them from themselves.
Yep.
And I say that because we talked about culture versus climate and had these conversations about how we can't take shortcuts. I think it's important for us as leaders to remember that just telling them what they want to hear or trying to appease them because we think that's the right answer is not the way to build a stronger team and not a way to protect the youth and the future leaders in our Navy, in the workforce in general.
Right.
So, as you come across these young motivated people and they're having conversation with you that just don't seem aligned, they seem like they're looking things from a very microscopic view instead of a macroscopic, and they're just very short-sighted on what they want to do and why they want to do it or what they're frustrated about. Man, just be comfortable to have those intrusive, uncomfortable conversations and kind of put things into perspective for them. Because sometimes it's as simple as taking a whiteboard and writing your side versus my side or whatever, right? And just putting some things in black and white. Yep. And the conversation, and this was all around someone talking about wanting to, not re-enlist to get out of the Navy. And we were just walking through what the benefits of re-enlisting and going to shore duty vice getting out. And when I talked to the other leader, he was like, man, I would never have that type of conversation with that. But I'm like, man, you have to. I think you have to be upfront.
Yeah.
And call it out, right? Like call out when someone's saying something that just seems not what's best for them, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm not getting paid if someone decides to stay in the Navy. when I'm having these conversations and I'm talking about retention, I'm doing it because I think it's the best for them and their family, and I want to show
Exactly.
them the benefits and like get them out of their own head and let them look at things from a wider perspective. So kind of long winded, man, but when we're talking about it, at the end of the day, you have to, if you built an environment and a psychologically safe environment where you're comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations, and the sailor or the employee knows that you're coming from a good place, I think the outcome is usually better.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you care more about the person, the
Yeah,
holistic person, rather than just the sailor that exists within his uniform.
sure. Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, man.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna get into what I'm reading, but man, this has been the slowest. I don't think. I think it's the least amount I've read in the last month than I think I have in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish. I didn't even finish the book that I was working on this month. But what are you reading right now, man? What's your blueprint right now? What you reading?
Yeah. Yeah, so I transitioned out of War of Art. I went to a book called Master Mentors. Master
Okay.
Mentors is actually it's one of those collective books like the Tools of Titans, and like
Oh yeah.
where
Okay.
you have all these different thought leaders that have come to make a contribution towards this work of art, right? This
Yeah.
book. And Master Mentors is the same thing, but it's specifically for leaders and for mentors. So it's a collection of, you have Carol Dweck, you have Brene Brown, you have Simon Sinek, you have a bunch of people that have come together to contribute to Master Mentors, and it's really good. It's a good collection
Okay.
of things, and it flows really well as well. So you got Daniel Goleman talking about emotional intelligence,
Emotional
and you
intelligence.
have Angela Duckworth talking about grit, right? So, and it's a little bit more granular and more expanded a little bit more because it's a smaller, subset of their book or what their message is, right? So I think you get more meat on the bone for for that small set of things they're talking about. So it impacts you more. It kind of drives you more towards wanting to get into their individual work, but it's definitely good and give you some different angles on things that even if you've read their books, it gives you a different perspective on where they're coming from. So it's been pretty good so far.
How is someone just bought me? Someone just gave me Grit as a book. I had never read it. Put on the list. Like that's a good one.
Yeah, so I did not read Grit. I only listened to the TED
Okay.
Talk. So I
Okay.
haven't actually read Grit
Yeah, someone just
because I
gave it to me.
like
So
yeah, Grit when she gave that it was almost in the same vein of Simon Sinek when he gave his why talk.
hmm
I mean, it was so clear. It was so
yeah.
clear. And Angela Duckworth, when she talked about grit, it was very clear. She went through the research, broke it down beautifully, and I was like, oh, this is what it is. So I didn't know if I mean, maybe the book will add some additional insight. I'm sure it will,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I got a lot from that TED talk that she gave. So that's the only
Oh,
reason I
I might just.
hadn't.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, I definitely check that out. Yeah, man. So I'm reading this book by Chris Bailey called "How to Train Your Mind." I'm trying to slow down myself a little bit. I've been reading a lot and talking to some people about, kind of these moments in the morning. This yoga esque kind of thing where you're taking 5-10 minutes of silence and just trying to gather yourself and slow your brain. I think both of us have trouble clicking our brain off and like
Yep.
finding ways to just relax. I think my wife says my biggest flaw and weakness is that I don't know how to relax. So this book is kind of a deep dive into some things you can do to kind of slow your brain and get yourself to relax and focus on your breathing and just kind of just something different for me to try to put me in a better headspace. So
Yeah.
maybe like wake up in the morning and I'm trying to do it before I go work out and just kind of like slow myself down and get myself in the right headspace for the day. So little different book than what I'm used to reading, but I was just trying to learn something a little different, trying to add to the skill set. So
No doubt. No doubt. Sounds good, man.
yeah, man. So what type of bars? What type of bars you hear this week? What's your quote of the week, man? What you dropping on us?
Yeah, so this is an artist by the name of Rumi, who I've followed for years. You'll probably recognize this quote. This is not my quote, but it's something that I consistently. If there was a tattoo that I would get like on the inside of my forearm to like remind me of the type of perspective to stay in, this would be kind of that quote. And it's, raise your words, not your voice. It's rain that grows flowers, not thunder. Raise your words, not your voice. It's rain that grows flowers, not thunder.
I need you to just do me a favor. When you get done with this, I need you to go to @LeadershipStateOfMind on Instagram, and I need you to just create a post, a story, and can you just write that in there?
Yeah,
and that's fire. That's fire. Coming from New York and being an Italian dude, I struggle with that on general principle. People just think I'm loud in general. Man, someone the other day was like, CMC was yelling at me. I was like, bro, you have never seen me even raise my voice. So I love that though, man. That's one of those things when I hear it, man, like I'm just like, it's powerful. And I know you're about to say something. Go ahead.
No. I'm just listening. Yeah. You're good.
Yeah. I hear that. My brain starts firing on all cylinders, right? Because I was just listening to this guy today talking about like speaking louder doesn't make your point doesn't prove your point, right? Your ability to stay calm and elevate what you're saying and how you're saying it is a true leader and a true skill set, man. So that's dope, dude. I love that. You always dropping bars, man. Like I feel like I can never keep up with your quotes, man. So where am I at? Yeah. So off Chris Bailey, you know, I like to use the quotes from the book that I'm reading. He said, we have to work with intention as much as possible. This is especially true when we have more to do than time within which to do it. Intention enables us to prioritize so we don't overload our attentional space. Go ahead.
Now, intention is one of my favorite words.
Sure, it's a good word.
That's one of my favorite words. I kind of stole it from my wife. There was one year where this was about probably 10 years ago. She was like, "Hey, this is the year of intention," and being intentionally thoughtful about every single thing. So I kind of took that from her and applied it to my own life. And that's intention is one of my favorite words, because I think a lot of times we just go with the flow of things that are happening and we let life happen to us. We let things happen to us rather than directing the current, directing the flow of things as much as we possibly can. So
so I mean that stuck to me because if we start every day with intention, if we have a goal, an objective, and a thing we're trying to do, like I think that's where leaders fail. If you're in a situation where you have hundreds of people that you're trying to manage and deal with and support and serve and lead, and there's issues and problems that come up, and your day-to-day is ran by putting out fires and trying to fix things, you're not living with intention. You're not driving with intention. If you show up to work every day and you have an intention and a direction and a way that you want to go to make sure that the people around you are being led the right way, I find that the fires go down. There's less issues and less problems because you're driving towards the big picture and the big goal. And I think that people just get lost in the sauce. They become overwhelmed by everything they're doing, that they lose sight of what their why was and what their intention was and what their goals were. And it's, sometimes when you're in the weeds, it's hard to see it. But so when I heard this, I was just like, man, like that's what, if you woke up every morning and you're like, I have intention to do this, like your wife was saying, man, that's powerful. And I think you can really move the needle and cause a lot of change with that. So
I'm purposely silent right here.
Yeah. Okay. Why?
And pausing in between my words because I want that to sink in for leaders. If you're, as a leader, listening to those words, starting a day with intention, because so many leaders that I have conversations with see their position as firefighters, as reactionary.
Yep, exactly.
As cause and effect, just existing in a space waiting for things to happen to them, rather than going out, seeking out, being intentional about what you want to happen and creating an atmosphere that's going to increase the propensity of that coming to pass. Like that, the farmer does not just throw seeds out and just hope things grow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tilling of the ground. There's a step by step process to prepare the space for what you are expecting, for what you want. So if you are on, I remember my baseball coach always just never get caught on your heels, because you never know how fast that ball is going to come, right? Always stay on the balls of your feet and go and move towards the ball as it's coming towards you. So that's exactly what I heard as you were talking about this. So I wanted to pause a little bit just so that sunk in, because there's a major key
key alert. Oh man. So as we transition to the next segment, 99 problems but leadership ain't one, where we talk about our leadership tip of the week. Oh, what you got, man? What type of leadership tip are you dropping on us?
Yeah, so I'm gonna purposely extract from your bars in terms of being intentional, and what I'm gonna talk about here is make sure that you're pouring into someone. A major part of your growth is taking the time to seek out somebody that needs your assistance, that needs your mentorship, that needs your guidance, that needs your wisdom, and just give it to them. Do what you can to pour into someone else, because the thing about our capacity is that we can't take in anything more if we're full.
Yep.
So how do we expect to continue to grow, to continue to prosper, if we are not pouring ourselves out to those that need us, right? So intentionally seek people out to pour into them, to challenge them, to help them get to that next level, even if they don't want it, because they're going to be grateful for it. Because sometimes people need to be pushed. They need to be challenged. They need to be that extra urge, right? Seek people out, pour into them, because that is part of our intentional growth process is giving what we have away. The flowers don't grow unless they're properly pruned, right? So we have to do the things necessary to prune ourselves, to get that stuff out of us. This is one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast. This facilitates our individual growth just by giving away all the things that we've learned collectively over 50 years, of leadership. So intentionally seek people out and pour into them.
I love that. The only thing I'm going to add to that is that the only way you can pour into people is you have to be approachable. You have to be like, I had this conversation the other day. I never understood when I would, kind of the position I'm in now, where I would see other people in that position and I would look at them and be like, man, they're the most knowledgeable dude with the most experience, and they seem so unapproachable. Like the way they act, their demeanor, their body language, like no sailor wants to walk up to them and have a conversation. Yep. So, and they're almost standoffish. And so what I would tell you is, if you're in a situation where you haven't walked around with the people that you serve and you're not engaging in a conversation to enough that they feel comfortable for you to pour into them, or they feel comfortable enough to come ask you a question and ask for some mentorship, then make sure you're looking at what your face looks like. Fix your face, fix your body language, make sure that you're approachable, so that way people can pour into you. And I love what you said. I used to get so frustrated when I feel like people, if you're sitting on a pedestal and everything you do is kind of like, just watching and you're like in inspection mode all the time, instead of being in mentorship mode, man, how can you make your team better around you, right?
Exactly.
So, again, motivate, lead, and inspire. And you do that by pouring into people and by being approachable and being available. So love that, man. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. So, man. Yeah. So my tip of the week, honestly, when you first started talking, I thought we did that thing again where we didn't talk or tell anyone.
I saw your look. I was like,
wait a second. I was like, where are we going, man? Like, you going through my phone again. I'm trying to figure out how you do it. Yeah, so this week I said, man, like, take the time to recognize your team around you.
Yeah.
You are not doing it alone. I
Yeah.
assure you. I assure you, man, no matter how good you think you are, your team is supporting you and helping you do it. You have a team supporting the organization. Take the time to thank them. Let them know how much you appreciate what they're doing. And sometimes that gets lost. You know, you can't just walk around and say, well, that's their job. Okay, maybe. But
Yeah.
are they doing the bare minimum, or are they trying to make the team better? Are they going out of their way to drive your vision and to do the things that you're looking for and asking of them? And if you are, man, take the time to just thank them and appreciate them. This isn't a recognition podcast, so we're not going to go into all the different ways we can do that. But please, just take the time to acknowledge it, man. Take the time to write a sticky note, write a card. You know, I'll tell you one thing that I do. I think this is tip of the fifth or sixth tip of the day already. I write handwritten thank you cards to every person that transfers from my job. Anytime someone leaves, I take the time to acknowledge them for what they did, thank them for, you know, their service, their commitment to the team. And so, you know, it's just one thing you can do to be thoughtful, to show them how much you appreciate them. Don't wait until they transfer for the first time that you say good job. But it's, you know, it's one of those things, man, you can always do to kind of thank the people around you.
Yeah. I
So,
think that small little, I talked last week about the Pareto's law and the 20 for 80, the little things that you can do for the 80% impact, the largest impact. And when you think about how much time does it take to write a letter?
Not much.
Not much.
Not much.
But that impact?
Yeah.
That impact with the words that comes from that, the spirit that comes from that, the sentiment that comes from that. Yeah. Yeah. If I were you, I would absolutely steal that from Tony. Absolutely.
It's yours, man. We giving it away.
Yep.
All right, man. So listen, I hope you're ready to get uncomfortable, and I hope you're ready to have some conflict, because this week's topic is, I think this is a banger. This is something that is not a skill that is easily just in you. I think it's something you have to work at. So what we want to talk about today, man, is how do we deal with conflict? How to have uncomfortable conversations and make people better through adversity. This can go a lot of different ways. I'm excited, nervous, and I don't know. I just got a lot of emotions, man. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, man. Same here, man. I think that this is the place where the rubber meets the road, literally.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about friction. We're talking about conflict. We're talking about heads butting in a number of different ways. And how do you handle those things as a leader?
Yeah.
How do you deal with those things? All right. So we're gonna go into. I know I got a couple of stories about how I handle things the right way. How I didn't handle things the right way.
Yeah.
As it pertains to conflict, to help you devise a methodology, a framework for yourself to deal with those things as you grow as a leader. So yeah.
All right, man. So, what do you think is your number one superpower to deal with conflict?
My number one superpower is super weird. It is breathing.
Okay.
It is breathing. So
yep.
Over the last 15 years, getting introduced into meditation, understanding the physiological changes that occur when you're breathing the right way, you make it a practice. When you get yourself in a situation where, because what breathing the right proper way does is essentially aligns all the systems in your body so that you're operating optimally.
Yeah.
And it helps you, emotionally, it helps you see things clearly, because when we're talking about conflict, a lot of the things that are detrimental to that conflict is how we see the world in that moment. In that moment, how I am seeing the world matters so much. And if I'm not in the right emotional state in the midst of that conflict, I'm going to take my most prevalent emotion, which is most likely going to be anger in that moment, and I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna ride that angry train until somebody falls, and that is not the right way to deal with it. So the practice of breathing, and because it's cumulative, it's not just something that you get better at in the moment. It helps build a buffer over time so that when things happen to you, you see them with perspective. You see them clearly. You get approached and somebody says, come at you, both knife hands all the way, come in aggressively.
Yeah.
And you're just like, something else is going on here. Like while this thing is happening, it's like almost you're, you know, how in superhero movies when they slow things down, like when the Flash is able to he's like sped up, but it slowed everything down. He's able to look, like pick the bullet out of the way and all this other. It's kind of almost like that effect. It can build that effect. So that's what's helped me over the years, because I'm not. Listen, a little background about me. I got 4 half brothers, and all of them were bigger than me. So I had to hit first.
Yeah.
I had to hit first. So my propensity to fight is at the forefront. How I fixed issues in my life early on was to punch first. That was how that's how I handle things. And it carried over into my career a little bit as well, because the first time I got in trouble was, you guessed it, because I got into a fight. Right? So this has been a lifelong learning process, you know, to help build that superpower. And that's probably been one of the greatest things that I've been introduced to help me in that endeavor. Because if I hadn't learned, I'd probably be still handling problems in that way, because I didn't see it clearly. And I got on board that anger train and let it carry me away to the bad place. What about you?
All right. Before I get into my superpower, I just want to, I'm going to, you know, kind of just comment on what you're saying. So one of the things that I think I transitioned to from before the Navy to in the Navy is, I agree, you know, growing up in New York, definitely have my handful of fights, but in the Navy, it kind of transitions from physical to verbal, right?
Yeah.
Like if you fast-witted with your tongue, you can really break people down and really hurt some people's feelings. And, you know, I have mentioned it. I feel like it comes out in every podcast. I'll tell you, an aha moment for me was being the 4 agreements and reading about being impeccable with your words. And the way Don Miguel talks about it is, your tongue is like a double-edged sword. And one side is, you know, black and angry and hurtful. And the other one is white and good and healthy. And so when you're from a place of anger, you're going to say things that can break people down and destroy people. Yep. And that doesn't help with conflict, right? So be impeccable with your words, I think, is a key component of that. And it kind of just goes along with what you're saying, right? Like being able to be in the right headspace. And so my tip, my superpower goes right along with what you're saying. What if you looked at every conflict in a different way? And what I mean by that is, my stance is that, for the most part, right now, there are people that just have bad attitudes and you might have to course correct. We can get into that later. But for the most part, what if your stance as a leader is that the reason that there is conflict and that the reason people are challenging you is because you have created a psychologically safe environment that they feel comfortable enough to do so. So change the whole way you think, right?
Yeah.
So if you, instead of you being offended that someone is challenging what you're doing, or someone is like, you know, well, what if we did it this way? Or like, I don't really think this is a good plan. Instead of you being defensive and taking it personal and being upset and then going into defensive mode, if you change the way you think and you're like, wow, I have created a culture and a psychologically safe environment that my team wants to improve, wants to be better. We've said it before. We might not always be the smartest people in the room. We might not always have the best answer. And what makes leaders great is when you're willing to take in other feedback, because the mission is more important than your ego, right? So you have to be able to remove ego. So my tip, my superpower is being able to take a step back and really think to myself, like, wow, this person is comfortable enough to say something that I don't necessarily agree with, or that is different and doesn't align with what we're doing, because they think it's what's best for the organization. And if you have that mindset as the conflict is happening, I feel like you can respond in an emotionally intelligent way and look for ways to push it and make the situation better. I mean, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And what that is called is reframing. That is called
yes, sir.
reframing. Is taking the instinctual mindset, purposely replacing that instinctual mindset that it is only focused on self-preservation, and putting on a new set of goggles, putting it in a new frame, and making that scenario beneficial for you in terms of your response, in terms of how you see them, and ultimately how they're going to see you and respond to you. So yeah, that reframing is, man, it's one of the most powerful things that leaders can do in real time. Because when you can do it in real time, that's and it takes a little bit to get to that point. That's like one of that Yoda level, that Yoda level one, right? If you do it in real time, that is because you're able to see yourself, you're able to see that person as they are, see yourself respond to them, look at yourself outside of that and say, okay, I want to respond. I see this in a negative light. Nope, I'm gonna transition that out, and I'm gonna put something else new there. And this is how I'm gonna completely change the course of their expectations of how they thought this was gonna go.
Yep.
And now we have some growth, and now we have some real stuff happening here.
And the other thing that you always say, I mean, I definitely learned this from you, is don't allow people to don't match their energy.
Yeah.
Right. Like if people come in hot and then you try to match their energy, they're just going to try to go higher. But if you go the opposite way and be like, well, explain to me why you feel that way. Or, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Why don't you sit down real quick and we can talk about it? You need a water? Can I get you something to drink? You know what I mean? And you can like slow down everything and then be able to get them into a state where they can, have a conversation. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But what happens when they're choosing violence? Like what happens, not actual violence, but what happens when it's not constructive? It's not trying to make the team better. When they are being divisive, when they are, attacking the climate, the culture, the thing that you feel is so important. How do you handle those type of conflicts?
Yeah. And my answer kind of goes back to what you alluded to with the matching of energies is, and I call it DATS, DATS. Don't absorb the stupid.
Okay,
don't absorb the stupid, because when we are challenged, when we are backed into, a metaphorical hole, so to speak, backed into a corner, our natural freeze, fight, or flight instincts are going to come to the surface. I will tell you, for me, my first instinct is to fight.
Yep.
And it starts with an awareness of who you are, right? I know who I am. I know where, if I get pushed in, if I get back into a corner, I know where I'm going to go instinctually, right? Because this is what I've done, my whole time. So that self-awareness piece, as this is happening, is huge. And being anticipatory about it before it happens. Like, be ready as a leader for those things to happen, for those things to occur, because there are going to be those times. Now, I can count on my hands out of thousands of interactions of how many times that has occurred where somebody was purposely vindictive.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the chances are still there. And being anticipatory as a leader, being ready for that to occur is big. And the practice of it. Okay, what if somebody comes in and calls me an MF and is just looking, to poke, to be vindictive, to be purposely divisive? What are they trying to do? What is happening in that moment? Because what they're trying to do is gain control.
Yeah.
They're trying to gain control because if somebody can press a button and then you move, you just became a video game.
Yep.
You just became Mario, right? So they find out what button it is that they can push to get you to respond. Now you just might as well add some strings, to you because you just became a puppet.
Yep.
Right. So being mindful, that going back to the self-awareness piece, being mindful of where your buttons are. What can somebody say to get you into a situation where you get into freeze, fight, or flight? What can they do to get to really, what are your buttons? Where are your buttons? And how are you going to mitigate that? So knowing that, knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe, taking it back to the 80s on you, you got to know what those buttons are, right? Because it's going to happen. You're going to get challenged. You're going to get pushed into a corner. But what gives you the win in that scenario is the pre-work that you've already done on yourself that, can really bring that's diffuse that situation and bring it down, right? So making sure you know what your buttons are, who you are, and practicing in your mind what those buttons, what can somebody do, right? Because you get as you understand and know your team, you know the ones that might pop off, right? That may have a high chance of saying something sideways or doing something sideways that may, they're trying to manipulate you or control you in a certain way. Understand who those people are. Understand what their desires are. Really get to know them. Understand them. Seek to understand. Seek to grow and create a connection, right? So that in that moment you understand why they're coming in that way, and then you can completely diffuse that situation and redirect their energy towards a more positive situation. And that's, like I said, just doing that pre-work. What do you think, Tom?
Well, first off, I agree. I think, you can't always, this isn't always an option, but knowing your people is really important. Right?
Yeah.
If you know your people, then you kind of know which ones are a little emotional, higher probability of getting upset. The other thing I'm able to do is remember that was me. Like that was me, man. Like, listen.
Yeah.
I'm still working on myself. I still get emotional. I still care. When I care a lot, when people care a lot, they're gonna be sometimes they're gonna be combative. Sometimes they don't have the skill set to communicate what they actually want to do, and sometimes they come across as angry or disrespectful or rude. And so for me, I know that I did those things. And so when someone comes at me in a certain way, I really try to be like, okay, are they really attacking me, or are they just frustrated, upset, lack of understanding? So I'm able to put myself in their shoes real quick because that was me. It was something that I always worked with. It was something that I wish a leader would have grabbed me when I was younger and kind of been like, hey, man, you don't have to be this way. But it never happened. So unfortunately, I try to do that for them. But I think the first thing is knowing your people. If you know your people, you're able to kind of understand how that is. And then I think, like to your point, knowing yourself is important. If someone is in a situation where this conflict is at the point where it's starting to push your buttons, if you need to walk away, walk away. Be like, hey, man, I understand what you're saying. Listen, let's meet up in 20 minutes and have this conversation. Or, hey, this conversation is not going the way I want it to. We're both pretty upset about it. I don't like the way you're talking. I don't like the direction of this conversation. So we're going to meet back up in an hour. We're going to take 30 minutes to kind of recenter. I think that's important for me. I can definitely tell when my ability to communicate starts to decrease and I'm getting a little bit louder and I'm stuttering a little bit more and I feel my heartbeat going up, that I know it's time to be like, all right, listen, let's pause on this. Let's take a couple minutes. Let's come back and chat. And I think that is a huge part of one of the things you do.
Yeah, so that's a big piece too, right? That's a big piece, recognizing in real time where you are physiologically, right? Because you can feel yourself. There's indications when you go into freeze, fight, or flight. And like for me, it's my forehead gets warm.
Okay, there you go.
My forehead gets warm. My head literally gets hot as my emotions start to escalate, right? It's like that cartoon, right? When you see,
Yeah.
the head pop off, the fire coming out, like my head literally gets hot. It's insane. So
Yeah.
but taking that time, to separate yourself from the situation and giving you the opportunity to change both of your physiological states, right? So you may have
Yep.
to take somebody, hey, we want to go outside. Let's walk this out. Let's walk and talk, right? Because that's a
Hmm.
change, it's changed from the office, get some sun, whatever the case may be. Just change the physiological situation that both of you are in to try to make it more facilitatory for a real non-emotional conversation, non-divisive
Yep.
conversation. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. I think when we're talking about this, I think there comes a point where the conversation might have to be a one way conversation.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
and I think we can get into that later. I mean, there comes a point, like the last point I was going to make before we get into those one way conversations and how sometimes you just need to, kind of have the other person calm down and listen. Uh, but before you do that, there's so many things that you can do before you got to get there, man. And I think the first thing to do is seek to understand, right?
Yep.
Seek to understand their perspective. What is it that you're mad about? Why are you frustrated? How can I help you fix this problem? If you know me and you know that I'm here to help you out and my job is to serve, be a servant leader and make you better and make the team better. If you're so frustrated and angry, I need to understand why. What
Yeah.
is it that you're frustrated about? Is this a breakdown in communication? Is this a misunderstanding? Or have I done something to you personally that you feel slighted or wronged or upset? And I think sometimes just taking the time to do that is a big deal, right? Like, what if you walked into a situation and said, hey, man, like, I own 51% of this problem.
Exactly.
What if you're saying to yourself, what if you're saying to the person that's upset, that's in the middle of this conflict, like, hey, I own 51% of this. I didn't communicate, or I said something that offended you, or I didn't set clear, concise expectations on what I was looking for. So I own 51%. What do you own in this conflict right now? And what is it that we can come to as an agreement to fix the problem? And I think when you
Yeah.
admit ownership and admit that, hey, man, I'm not perfect. If I did something to upset you, I want to help fix it. I think you can easily slow down the conflict and get it to a place where you can have a conversation and fix the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the thing that freeze, fight, or flight is going to make you do is become defensive. Remember, freeze, fight, or flight is only about self-preservation, right? So it's telling you a story that, hey, I need to protect myself. So what do we do when those situations arise? Well, I got to be defensive, right? So you're getting challenged in a way that, from somebody, that first inclination to feel defensive, nope, reframe it like
Yep.
Tony already told you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And go back to a situation where you recognize that somebody you have facilitated an environment where people are comfortable to come and challenge you. That's a good thing,
Yep.
right? So
Yeah.
let's reframe that in real time, and let's redirect the conversation to, okay, how have I contributed to this situation where it's not very fruitful for you, and how can I help that? And sometimes, going to what Tom said, like sometimes people just want to be heard. Like they
Yep.
feel like their opinions, their perspectives, they don't feel like they're being honored in a meaningful way, and they really want to contribute to the situation, to the answer, to the level of performance of the team or the direction of the team. Giving people a safe space to be heard, a lot of times, really just it calms it down. It's like, oh man, I'm I'm glad that I'm able to have this conversation and talk to you about it. Yeah, and they may not have anything directly that they want to do, but they just want to be heard about some things that they're concerned with. So absolutely, bro.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think we're all talking about the same thing. We're all just looking at it from different angles, but seek to understand and get their perspective before jumping to conclusions. I
Yeah,
think the other thing is, as a leader, the higher you get up, is that the conflict is probably not even happening with you. It's probably happening with the middle manager, and he's giving you his perspective on what this person is doing. And so it's your job to weed through that, right? And if it's been bubbled up to your level where you need to handle it, okay, well, we're going to handle it. But the first thing I'm going to have to do is seek to understand and seek to get the perspective of the other person. Right now, sometimes they might still be wrong, and sometimes we need to realign, and we need to hold people accountable. This isn't a podcast where we tell you that everything is hugs and kisses and everything's going to be all right, man. Like, sometimes people need to be held accountable, and you need to make sure that you hold the line for your culture, your climate, and the things that you want to do. But man, that should be the rare exception, not the norm, right? Not the norm. Most of the time, man, you can resolve these conflicts by seeking to understand their perspective. The other thing that's really big for me, bro, is that if I'm getting told something and there's multiple like feedback indicators that this person is not doing what they need to do, and it is something that is affecting my culture, my climate, my organization, like the things that I strive for that I think are inherently important to build a strong team, I will set a sit down or a meeting, and I'll set it for a day or 2 days later. Right? Like, you cannot go into conversations as a leader angry.
Yeah.
Right? You can't go into conflict angry, because if you do, you're not going to be able to get to a good place with it. That is certainly something that comes with time. Normally, I wanted to hit that head on. Yeah. Oh, that's how he feels? Let's go find him.
Let's go.
Right?
Let's go.
Let's handle this right now. And this isn't all the time where I'm so upset that I need a day. But if there's something that's really, really frustrating me, I will, hey man, I got an interview, or I got a time slot for you tomorrow, 30 minutes. I'll make sure you're in my office at 10:30. And that gives me a day to do two things. One, not walk into the situation angry. And two, rehearse what I'm going to say and how I'm going to handle the situation. Right? Think about what is he mad about? What is he going to say to me? Make sure that I don't allow myself to get controlled by the narrative and the conversation, and kind of think about what my rebuttals are going to be and how I'm going to handle it in the best light. So if you're the type of guy or girl that can feel yourself getting angry, or that this is a sensitive topic for you and you're frustrated at someone's lack of performance or the things that they're doing or not doing or whatever, and you're really frustrated and you feel emotional about it, man, take a day, take a beat on it, wait a day, schedule the appointment, because it's got to happen, right? Like, let's not miss the big topic here. The only way to go from good to great, to build a phenomenal organization and a great culture, is to not allow these things to fester. You need to handle conflict head on. Right? But if you know that you're not in the right headspace to do it that day, then schedule it for the next day, clear your head, rehearse, and say, walk through what you want to talk about and how you want to get to a good place, and then have the meeting the next day. And when you can do that, you have now put yourself in the right headspace to be able to adequately, lead them and get over this adversity and this uncomfortable conversation or conflict.
No, I'm big on rehearsal. I personally imagine the most sideways thing that somebody can say to me in that moment, and mitigate it in a way that how would I respond in that moment. And sometimes I talk to myself in those moments. I'll say it out loud, and writing those things down as well. I have cursed out so many people using pen
journal?
and paper.
Sure.
Using pen and paper. I have, I've talked about somebody like you would not imagine.
I'm sure.
On pen and paper. Just to get it out.
Yeah.
Just to have an avenue of expression, for that anger, for that frustration, for that offense, so to speak. Because once I got it out, it's no longer bubbled up. There's no pressure. It's already been released. So using that as an outlet to help as well, that's been huge for me. Yeah.
And I don't write. And if you're as lucky as me, when you feel that way, I just call a mentor or call a
Yep.
good friend and vent out loud,
Yeah.
right? If you're frustrated about something, I mean, I know, hey, that's going both ways. But we have called one another, and
Yeah.
it's been like, man, I just need to vent. Like this, I need to get this off my chest, because if I say this out loud to someone else, it's going to be a bad day.
It's gonna be a problem.
So if you're not a big writer, man, like call someone that you can trust, that you can vent to, that's going to give you your perspective, and if that's going to give you real feedback. Like tell you, like, hey, man, I think you out to lunch. I think you're mad about nothing. I think you're overreacting. Or maybe they think you're right, and then they give you some tools to fix the problem. But whatever it is, man, like go into that meeting, go into that conflict in the right headspace, and I think that puts you in a good situation. Now, what happens when the conflict is right in front of you, though? Like, what happens when it's happening in real time, in a hallway, in a middle of a meeting? How do you handle those situations? Because right now we're talking about something that we can kind of control the narrative, take a step back, look at it, but it's not always that good of a situation. So how do you handle that when it's in situ?
Yeah, never feel obligated to respond.
Mm. Mm.
If you're the leader, be the leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the one who's doing all of this, and there's the person that's sitting back, being calm in the moment, understanding, not responding. Who looks like the leader in that situation?
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
So be the leader, in that situation, and never feel obligated like you got to respond to it. Like, all right, are you done? Are you done? All right, let's go to the office. All right, all right, you want to do it in the middle of a meeting? Okay. Like I am not going to feel obligated to respond because you think that you have, embarrassed me. Oh man, you read me my rights in front of everybody. Oh, no. That's not how anything works. That's not how anything works, right? Because assuming the mantle of leadership, right, means that you're going to be susceptible to those things happening. And you have to prove that you're a leader in that moment. And being the leader in that moment is not responding to those things. It's being calm, recognizing where somebody is, recognizing that hurt people, that although there's something else going on, however you need to frame it in your mind in that real time, let them get it out, and then say, all right, hey, let's go to the office. Let's talk about this. Because once you set them on fire in real time, like it's a wrap. You ain't getting them back.
Yeah, I think that's something that took some time for me, because I would just like to handle it right there for a while. I would say that I would like to just, if you want to call me out in front of a bunch of people, like I'm gonna call you out back. But there's no there's no coming back to that. Like the point is that you're burning bridges that don't need to be burned, right? That, praise in public, reprimand in private, however you want to say it. There's some phrase for it. So if someone is that emotional and they got something to say, man, like, yeah, man, I understand what you're saying. Let's have this conversation offline. Like, let's talk after the meeting. Yeah, man. So I love that, and
never feel obligated to respond, because that's you lose your credibility too, right?
Yep.
Because
if you can't stay calm in those.
Yep. And now everybody's like, oh, this is how we respond. Oh, this is how we do things. Okay, this is because now you set the tone for the type of environment that you desire. Even though you probably don't desire that kind of environment, but because you've allowed yourself to be captivated in that moment and respond in that way, now, like, the cat's out of the bag now, baby. You can't put it back in there.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste, man.
Yeah.
Once it's out. Yeah. So, and another thing I'll tell you is, for those of you that are funny, or maybe you think you're funny, humor is also a good way to diffuse the situation, right? I don't like using humor with conflict, because people can take offense to it, like that you don't take it serious. But if you're talented enough where you can kind of diffuse the situation and get them to calm down, and that's your skill set, man, that's another one that you can use. The whole point of this, we want to be able to give you guys some tools and pull some tangible things based on your skill set and your personality to be able to handle these conflicts. But remember this: if you avoid it, if you don't handle it, you're gonna create a different environment. Because what happens is when people that are underperforming start having bad attitudes and start becoming toxic for the organization, and good people who care and do things the right way don't see these people being taken care of and held accountable, then they get mad too, right? And so now you have people, this guy is, acting out of line and creating a toxic work environment, but you're not holding him accountable. And now this guy who does things the right way, that is like, well, why should I do things the right way and act a certain way if the leadership isn't going to take care of the situation to make the environment better? You're now making the situation worse. You're starting to really affect the thing that you should care so much about, which is the right climate and culture. So if you don't like having these uncomfortable conversations, we have said it before, get uncomfortable having uncomfortable conversations. You have to do it because your team needs that from you. That's what leaders are meant to do. They're meant to have those uncomfortable conversations, to deconflict conflict, to handle conflict head on, and create a situation where you guys can move forward.
Yep. And nobody's good at this overnight. This is a skill. This is a skill that has to be built. Like, you're not going to be good at this. You're not going to master this as soon as you take over, as a leader. So you have to do the work inwardly to make sure, that you are building that skill, recognizing that it's an inevitable, part of leadership to have conflict. And all these tools, all these things that we've talked about, when all of these things fail, sometimes you do have to have a one-sided conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to sit that person down. And I used to say it all the time. Hey, I need you to shift to receive mode.
Yep.
You're going to understand what I'm telling you. This is not a conversation.
Yep.
This is not a back and forth. This is one way. I am transmitting. You are receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Understand how things are going to go. Understand my expectations in this scenario. Understand my direction in this time. And you have to be strong enough as a leader to have that one-on-one conversation, that shift to receive mode conversation, because sometimes some people need that significant emotional event to snap them out of what they may have been in.
Yep.
And some people are stubborn. Some people are pig-headed and need to be jarred a little bit. This isn't, this isn't a violence thing when I'm talking about jarring. It's just, there needs to be a direct approach to break them, to get them out of whatever they're in, so they recognize, hold up, oh, what? Yeah, all right. Yeah, I messed this up.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So sometimes it does need to escalate to that, but there's a bunch of things in the middle that you can do before you get to that place. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's really important is, as you're learning these skills and you're developing them, the middle managers, the supervisors of a lot of, your workforce and the people that surround you, make sure you're giving them these tools.
Yep.
Right. You can't be the fix it guy. You like every conflict can't just go to you.
Yeah.
Right. So make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're the only guy that has to have the uncomfortable conversation. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So make sure you take the time as you learn these skills and develop, how you handle these adversities and these uncomfortable conversations and this conflict, is that you're sharing it with your people and teaching them and mentoring them on how to handle it. Because if they're handling 80% of that type of conflict, and your leadership below you, your managers and your supervisors, and that they're handling it the right way, that is a great way to give you more bandwidth to do the things that you need to do. And then only the things that are beyond their scope to handle, comes up to your level. So make sure you're, training as well and giving them the skills needed to handle those uncomfortable situations.
Absolutely. And remember, we're here at Leadership State of Mind, as we're talking about conflict management. Use us as your help. Use us as your mentors. Get into the comments. Let us know what scenarios you're dealing with. What are you facing? What is something that has kind of confounded you, in a relationship that you try to make right in a team oriented situation that has gone awry and you're trying to get that back on track, let us know. Let us know in the comments what you're dealing with, what issue you're dealing with. We're right here to help. Like I said, it's 50 plus years, worth of leadership experience here on this podcast. And we've seen a lot, a whole lot, and we've dealt with a whole lot. And most importantly, we've failed a whole lot, which
especially
means
in this
that
one.
we've learned, from a lot of failures along the way on how better to respond and to react and to handle ourselves in the midst of that conflict. So get into the comments. Let us know what you're facing, what you're dealing with. Use us. When I said that, as a leader, our job is to pour into others. That's everybody. So we hold us to account, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help you be the best version of yourself, in the leadership space as possible. So yeah.
And that's what we do here at Leadership State of Mind, man. We are trying to reframe the way you think about leadership. We're trying to get you to look at things from a new perspective, because being a leader is dope, man. It's an awesome opportunity. It's why I wake up every day with so much energy. Every day is an opportunity to motivate, lead, and inspire the people around us and build an environment that people want to come to work with us because they know that we care about them. So again, like, share, follow, man. Leadership State of Mind is blowing up. Get part of the team. Subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, iTunes. Do all the things. And please, man, reach out. Like O was saying, man, reach out into the comments. See how else we can help. If there's some motivational Mondays and some things that you want me to talk about or address, bring it up to me and O so we can do it. If there's a topic for the podcast you want us to do, let us know. Man, we are here. We are here to help. We are here to make this a new way of thinking about leadership, man. And that's what we do. Oh, any last words, bro?
Hey, you said it. Look, you said it. Like, share, subscribe. Come on board. Let's get on this. Let's get on this train with us. We're trying to make ourselves better, help you to become better, and we're gonna continue to dedicate ourselves to do that every single day.
Yes, sir. Well, as always, brother, man, I appreciate you jumping on the podcast with us. Till next time, Leadership State of Mind, man. We out. Have a good one.
Peace.